Hello out there. Welcome to our podcast today. This is Eric Johnson, the brand.
And Coach Aaron Thigpen, the source.
Hey, Aaron, what's happening, bud? What's going on? What's going on out there, man? How you feeling? Feeling good?
Doing all right, man. Just trying to catch up on some of this stuff. We've been gone for a little bit.
Yeah.
And I'm going to slow roller back on the end of the day.
Right on, man. Right on.
Going, yeah. So what do we got going today?
Well, Aaron, you and I talk about this a lot during our days together. And our subject today we're going to talk about is, are you open to being coached?
Yeah.
You know,
it's something I've been kind of thinking about in the last couple of weeks because, it's going on winter break. A lot of the fall sports are ending. And I'm getting, a lot of new inquiries. Kids who finish their season, they want to start training. And it's funny because you have athletes or parents, that call and they want to train, but I think sometimes they have their own preconceived notions on what that training should look like, and when it doesn't fit that, they can be resistant. And so what I'm, trying to tell these athletes is you have to be open. If you're not completely open and you're going to see an expert, you're not going to be able to take advantage of the information he or she can give you. I mean, why go see an expert and then second guess everything that they're doing? Are you really looking for help, or are you just looking for someone to validate what you're already thinking? And this kind of was illustrated by an athlete that I have, young athlete, and he's doing a speed program. And part of when I do speed programs, I give lifting and the running. And when I wanted to give him the lifting, he was resistant. Oh, well, I've got my own lifting program and da-da. And so that was fine. I kind of backed off because I figured, well, maybe he has someone in his area because he's not from this area. And fast forward 4 or 5 weeks later, we're not progressing. And I said, well, what kind of lifting are you doing? Oh, I'm doing this, this, and this. I said, well, none of this of what you're doing complements what we're doing. And at the onset, I'd asked you, I said I had a routine for you to do that would help us work towards our goal. And so that's the sort of thing that kind of struck me. It's like, do you want to trust something off the internet, Mr. 16-year-old, or do you want to trust this 30-year-old black guy who's been or 58-year-old black guy who's been doing it for 30 years? And I see that a lot, and I'm sure you probably see it in on your side from the technical aspect. People come to you to help them with their hitting, but yet they are resistant in changing things about their swing. And I think it's more of, maybe they're just a little misinformed. Maybe because they've had some success with certain things in the past, they don't want to quite let go. But to get the benefit of any coach or any trainer, you've got to turn yourself over. And we always talk about immersing ourselves, in what you're doing. And that means, giving some of that control over. So that's kind of was the impetus for this subject today, is that I want people to kind of think about, hey, am I really all in? Which was another one of our podcasts.
Yeah, are you all in? Yes.
And, and if you're not, maybe some of the steps leading to deciding with going with a trainer should look like doing a little bit more due diligence. I talk to a lot of people who want to come into Game Speed, and a lot of them don't even read the website. No. And I think it's important that parents and athletes understand a trainer's philosophy and their background and their pedigree, All of that should help you either ask more questions or feel at ease about what this individual wants to introduce to you as an athlete. So even if you don't do something as basic as that, well, yeah, you're going to probably have some reservations and things like that. So, you've got to kind of, do your homework as well. And I think after you do your homework, then maybe some of those fears and reservations can be, allayed. But I'll let you go ahead and take it from here.
Aaron, I'm marveled at the fact that people don't read websites, do their homework, ask questions when they're inquiring, whether it's your services or mine. I'm always amazed that people who don't do that and just go, oh, I heard about this. Yeah, we're going to do it. It's kind of like this instant gratification society that we live in now, that, oh, this worked really good. Okay, it'll work for my kid. Right. Or this is happening, I better do that, or I'm going to miss out on something.
Right.
And I feel that if you're just engulfed and you're a student athlete, a young athlete that wants to move forward in what they're trying to do, then you're engrossed in the process. Mm-hmm. Again, we always talk about the process. And what does that mean? Process means longevity in an activity with adjustments along the way that allow you to get to your final destination, wherever that is being. And I think a lot of athletes, parents, and if you're all listening out there, understand that whatever you do in athletics, it takes time. It's not a short-term fix on anything. Whether you're a volleyball player, a softball player, a track and field athlete, football player, basketball, baseball, et cetera, golfer, tennis, understand that you're trying to get your body in the best possible shape for the long haul. It's not a short term, like I'm just going to come out and I'm going to go this tournament or I'm going to go this meet for 2 weeks. I need to be ready in 2 weeks. Well, what do you mean? That's just like, we're just scratching the surface after 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. We're just kind of like helping you start to understand the movement patterns or things you need to do. So, right. That's what we're talking about. Not only athletes you're open to being coached, but parents, are you open to be coached by experts? Yeah, that's why we're called experts.
Right.
We're called experts because of our pedigree, as a term that I love that Aaron uses, pedigree, our experience, the things that we've put in, not only teaching and training, but doing as professional athletes as we once were. I mean, that has to mean something to someone. And there's that experience that, you can't just get, you have to do it in order to feel it and be part of it. And I think that's one thing that we bring to the party that makes our pedigree so strong, is that we've lived it, done it, coached it, trained it, and adjusted along the way to get our athletes where they needed to be. So, Aaron, I throw it back at you. Hey, parents, are you open to being coached?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think also, you got to look at what your motivation is for seeking out a coach or a trainer and that sort of thing. And failure is a big part of, our business. And, it's drives a lot of people. And I think sometimes when you've been having some failure, you're always worried about, okay, the last thing I didn't work. Now, is this other thing, this new thing I'm going to do not work too? Is it going to fail also? And I think you've got to somehow shake that and treat every new experience as a new experience. And you can't kind of bring, that baggage from the prior relationship, he didn't treat me well, to the new relationship. All you're doing is making it harder for the next, your next date, your next guy or whatever. So you've got to kind of learn to leave that stuff behind. And like I said, look at each new experience as an opportunity, and maybe this is the one. And, like you said, you got to give some of these things time. And I think because people are so worried about failing or this isn't working in the timeline that they're talking about, that they pull the ripcord.
Right.
And, maybe part of what your conversation can be is say, hey, well, what's, what can we expect through this process? How long do you think it might take? That sort of thing. I do get that question a lot in terms of when do you think it's going to get better?
Right.
And, that's different than, hey, explain to me the process.
That sure is.
That's completely different. That's
Yep.
not the same question. And I think once you understand the process and someone may be able to explain to you the ebbs and flows, and sometimes it's taking one step back to take two steps forward, and there may be a longer time horizon than what you expect, then at least at the beginning, that. And at the first point of adversity, you're not thinking, okay, this is, I'm in another bad program and we need to bail.
Right.
So I think that's very important. And yes, us as trainers and coaches, can probably do a better job of explaining that process, but it's not always that, cut and dry and that easy, because everyone's busy and everyone's moving. But it doesn't hurt to, ask it at some point, even if it's, 2 or 3 weeks into the process, or, a few sessions in the process. This way you have a clearer understanding and expectation. And you don't write it, you don't write set-offs as, oh, this is the beginning of failing, or setbacks, excuse me, as beginning of failing. I had a kid who, I can't remember how many miles an hour we put on during the off season into the high school season after our throwing program. I think maybe 4 to 6 miles an hour.
Right.
And this kid still wants to, he's looking for velocity improvements in, July, August. And he's frustrated, and it's like, well, that you're not going to get those jumps in July and August. Your arm is tired, but what they, but again, without being always have that conversation, articulate, they think, oh, well, this didn't work. Oh, well, and it's like, well, no, you have to wait until next year for that next 4,
the next 4 miles per
exactly,
hour.
4 miles an hour, because now you've still got to go back and do another 4-month, 5-month off-season program.
Right.
You've hit the ceiling of what you can get out of your body this year. That's it. So, and I know, because that timeline may not match what you want, it's still how things work. And so, like I said, athletes will have that sort of experience and think, oh, well, it doesn't work anymore, or, I got to go find something new. And I don't think that's the right way to approach it. I mean, most of the coaches I've had throughout my years as an athlete, I had for 10 years, 15 years. You know what I'm saying? 20. I don't think there's a coach that I hadn't had that wasn't, a multi-year coach, 5, 7, quite a bit of time. And like anything else, through that period of time, you have highs and then you have lows.
Yeah, Aaron, I think you can have, I said any, but and I want to backtrack a little bit about what you said, because this really stands out. Explaining the process versus when will I get better? Soon, like instantly.
Yeah.
I think that's really important. And I know you and I do this a lot, because we may not do it in the first session, but the second, third, or fourth session, after they've kind of got their feet on the ground, we might say something like, okay, you've been, here for a little bit. How do you want to get better? Now that you kind of like have a feeling, what are your goals? And I'm amazed by this too. How many athletes don't have any goals? Like, I go, what's your goal this year? And what are you trying to do? And I think that's part of, in the process of are you open to being coached? Is
Yeah.
that's something that we're saying that we think you should try to start thinking about. I think athletes are just training to train without any defined
Mhm.
goals of what they want to achieve. Like, what do you, I tell my hitters, what do you want to hit this year? What's your average? What's your on base percentage? How many doubles you want to hit? How many RBIs? How many stolen bases? And then on the defensive side, say, hey, how many errors do you want to make this year? At your position, here's a good fielding percentage.
Mhm.
Or what are you trying to do? I want to improve my range. Okay. Now, how's that going to equate into the game and make you that type of player? So, I think back to understanding the process and why you want to get better, goal setting, that's part of, are you open to being coached and understanding that's part of the equation. It just can't be, I'm just training to train,
Yeah.
or I'm just coming to hit to hit.
Mhm.
What, you got to be open to understand what we're trying to teach. Like, we want you to have goals.
Right.
We want you to try to achieve this. And I think that's so important, and I think a lot of players, and I want to get back to this subject of being coached. And it goes back to, I always say, the COVID era. We're out of, I'm calling it, we're out of now. I won't say we're in it. We're out of now. But people went and looked at research. That's all they had time to do. They couldn't get outside. They
Right.
started looking up stuff on the internet and say, okay, well, these guys say that must be something. That must mean something. One or two, three. It's not like they researched 30 hitting instructors or 30 sports performance coaches. They said, oh yeah, this looks good. Okay, this one or two guys here, and okay, that's what it is.
Right.
And then all of a sudden they became the expert about, well, my kid's doing this swinging, and I saw on the internet. Well, first of all, it's in a cage. It's not on the field.
Yeah.
And we're just talking about something that is stale. I'm talking about live hitting, talking about things that will happen in the game,
Right. Right.
experiences. This is not so stale, and the ball's not coming straight down the middle. It's not being tossed in this one specific spot. The ball is hitting so many different points on the plate that I can't explain to you how different this is. But through my experience and coaching, because we're asking you to be open to be coached through my experience coaching and playing, hey, here are some of the things we think you need to understand, and this is the reasons why. So kind of, I wonder if that has something to do with it, Aaron, is that people during that COVID period were just, researching and figured that they were the experts.
Yeah. Well, that kind of dovetails into actually what I was going to move on to. I was watching a movie this weekend called Amsterdam, and there was a line in it that said, you have to decide which God you're going to follow home. And, that's basically what we're talking about. You can't, all the information could be out there. You could get some good information off the internet, but
Right.
if the professional you're going to has different information and wants to do it a different way, you can't kind of fact check, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
What one is versus the other, because they're not the same thing. And it's not even fair, because you're not, anything you get on the internet still is kind of at face value. Doesn't talk about any of the, the idiosyncrasies, the different scenarios, the nuances, all of that. And so, you have to, I think, decide and say, hey, look, this is the path we're going to go down. This is the God we're going to follow, at least for this period of time.
Right.
We have a podcast you guys should listen to called Too Many Cooks in the Kitchen. It's similar to that. And so, be familiar with the process, follow, just one God at a time.
One guide.
And give things time. And if things start to go awry, then have a conversation. I just last week, I had a young lady, she was coming in twice a week, a basketball player, and she really was doing well. She caught some things on, for the first probably 3 or 4 months. And then she got sick. She started to miss. I'd been out, and all these things kind of discombobulated, a little
Right.
bit. Now it had checked in with the parent, and she goes, yeah, this has happened, that happened. And, because I always ask, hey, well, how's she playing on the court and that sort of thing, to kind of, keep tabs and make sure what we're doing in the gym is transferring. And so some of it wasn't. And she kind of started to backslide a little bit. And what the conversation allowed us to do is to start to pinpoint, say, oh, okay, you know what? Her schedule is off. Your schedule is off. She wasn't coming in twice a week anymore. She's coming in once a week and missing this or missing that,
Right.
the level of competition that she's playing is higher now. She just came off of being sick, so now instead of, silently going away, complaining, we were able to sit down and troubleshoot. Oh, this is kind of what's been happening. Okay, well, now it makes sense. How do we get back on track?
Like that.
And
Reboot.
yeah, exactly. And I
Reboot.
think parents should be more interested in that than, okay, let's jump ship. I mean, if you want to jump ship, that's fine.
That's
But
fine.
there's another podcast I want you to listen to. It's called, Magic Beans.
Right.
And the philosophy behind that. Listen to that. And I think there's a lot of that has to do with people jumping ship. So again, in my experience, in most athletes that I've had or even know, professional athletes, they've been with their coaches for years.
Yes.
And that's through good and bad. It's not all good.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, if you're going to kind of look, if you always have the grass is greener on the other side, you're never going to find that coach that can help you.
Yeah.
So, that's my 2 cents on it.
Well said today, Aaron. I really like this subject. People don't really talk about a lot about, it's all interrelated. I think the podcasts that you heard, I hope you wrote them down, people out there, because I think those are very good, can help you in helping with your process, with your athlete. So, Aaron, with that said, I think we've hit, are you open? Are you being open are you open, I should say, to being coached? So with that said, Aaron, I just want to hit a couple bullet points about what we got coming up, man, here soon on what the brand and the source are doing over at GameSpeed. Parents out there, remember coming up here over the next probably 30 to 40 days, 60 days, we'll be doing a little seminar over there at GameSpeed, how to navigate travel ball. I think it'd be a great seminar for you guys to come on in and check out what Aaron and I have to say. How do you navigate your young athlete, in travel ball? So that was one thing. Stay tuned to us. We're going to have some projects coming up too, Aaron, regarding some of our heavy hitters, Rob Bruno, Ron Wotus. Some of those guys are going to be on some of our podcast, and check us up at Mic'd Up too, Aaron.
Yep. Sounds great.
With that said, I think that's it today, Aaron. But hey, this is the brand, Eric Johnson.
And this is the source, Aaron Thigpen. We'll see you.